Steve, I thought Idabel was bad. Jesus Christ. Wow. Uh, our guest today is Chris Peters with the Stillwegian. He's a founder and a one-man show on this thing. He started with local news. He's since expanded into sports as far as volleyball and softball, and I think now basketball, right? Coming up. Uh, Previously worked at the News Press, was also the director of Downtown Stillwater Association. I don't think we've ever had anyone that graduated with a theology and media ministry degree from Midwest Masters Commission out of Del City. So, anyway, Chris, come on up.
All right. Thank you, Chris, for inviting me. And on the theology, not an official degree. This was more of a this. Yeah. No, I did actually kind of cut my teeth actually in church media, which is what brought me to Oklahoma more than 20 years ago. But that's not today's presentation. So first of all, thank you guys for having me. Thanks for Chris for inviting me. He got it. I am the founder and editor of the Stillwegian. And also thank you to Kevin Clark to make sure that my presentation is going to go off without a hitch today. And then also I wanted to welcome, we've got two OSU multimedia journalism students, Matthew back here and Cooper behind the camera. So I guess they're going to do a story about me. This is kind of, I'm kind of living in opposite land. Usually I'm the one behind the camera, not in front of cameras. So bear with me if I'm a little bit nervous. So kind of by a show of hands, who has heard of the Stillwegian? All right. And then keep your hands up if you're a subscriber, free or not, free or paid. All right. I knew I was in good company. Okay. So the next question is, anybody know what a demonym is? Okay. Yeah. So a demonym is a word that identifies people from a particular place, such as country, city, or state. So an example would be Oklahoman. If you're from Oklahoma, you're Oklahoman. If you're from Norman, maybe you might be referred to as a Normanite. Something else is for sure. Or if you are from the United States of America, you might be referred to as an American. So the question is, what do you call people from Stillwater? And this was actually posed. Before I heard this term, we just called ourselves townies. But so it was actually Mayor Will Joyce that kind of brought the word or the demonym Stillwegian kind of into the lexicon of the community. I didn't go back to verify exactly when, but this would have been before 2020. But I remember him telling the story of going to mayor's conventions and stuff like that, and when you're talking about the people that you're representing, it was like, well, what do I call people from Stillwater? And he told me he kind of had two words that came up. The first one was Stillwegian, and then the other one was Stillwegian. And so when I heard of it, I was like, I think a lot of people are like, are we really going to call ourselves Stillwegians? So the jury's kind of still out on that one. But when I was going to start this venture, I knew I needed a name that kind of fit a couple things. First of all, it had to be unique. And Stillwegian, if you go and Google or search the word Stillwegian anywhere on the internet, it's going to point to me. And then it also needed to feel like a newspaper name. So when so I had a local designer kind of tweak the New York. That's the New York Times style font. But I went there, downloaded the font, put it in there. I was like, that looks like a newspaper name to me. And then there also needed to be a story behind it. So kind of interesting that the mayor's kind of thrown it out there, and some elected officials have kind of used it. And then in my early beta testing, it was 50-50. There were some people who loved it. Obviously, the mayor was a fan. And there were some people in this room that were like, I don't like it. So then that's where I thought, hey, that means it's the perfect name for a newspaper. And so then the other thing is we've got some other things that it works with. It pairs nicely with the O Collegian, the full name of the student newspaper. But if you need to remember how to pronounce it, it sounds like Norwegian. So what is the Stillwegian? I kind of like to think of the Stillwegian as a time machine. This may be not something most people would think of with local news. But what a newspaper does or a journalist does is they transport readers to a time and place they weren't, and then also condense that time. So I take a 3-hour meeting and turn it into a 5-minute story. So, and then the other thing with, as it being an archive, it's also a way that we use to travel back in time to be like, who said what, where, when, and why. But in reality, it's a digital newspaper. If you want to like, what am I trying to build? It is a digital newspaper. More tangibly, it's a website, an email newsletter, and also a presence on social media. So here's just some screenshot of kind of what the homepage looks like, and then kind of a little screenshot of a newsletter. Kind of while we're plugging some things, so when I was putting this presentation together, my first iteration was like, oh, I got to tell you guys all about me, where I'm from, and all that stuff. Well, a month ago, I was on a podcast with a local podcaster named Denver Evans. He does Stillwater Connect. If you haven't seen this, it's on YouTube. It's also any place you can go and download a podcast. But he interviews locals in town about their business or whatever they're doing. And during that sit down with him, I kind of gave him my origin story. And warning, it's about an hour long. So if you want to kind of know how I got to where I am, you can go check that out. So why? Why am I doing this? Selfishly. I wanted a better local news experience. When I came to Stillwater in 2008, I moved from Del City, Oklahoma City area up to Stillwater, and I was like, okay, I'm going to get plugged in. And I have always been a kind of older digital native. In the early 2000s, I read blogs. I was very much, on the internet, reading a lot of stuff, and I really appreciated the kind of clean reading experience that some of these independent writers and stuff were doing. And so then when I go to like, okay, I'm going to plug into local news, my very first impression of visiting our local paper's website was, and this would have been 2009, was back when websites could kind of take over your full screen of your computer with an ad, and then you had to find the little X to get rid of it. And that was my first impression. And it was a Barry Sanders Honda at the time. And I was like, man, I'm coming to get local news, read what you've got, and you immediately just put up a big block. And that was actually something that now browsers prevent advertisers from doing, thankfully. But it kind of just left a little bit of a sour note in my stomach. And so then fast forward, I'm working at the news press. I'm a page editor, so I'm the one that would take the stories from the reporters, take the photos from the Rotary clubs, take the descriptions, and place all that on the paper. And in that process, I basically learned how at least how our newspaper works. Um, and there's also a little bit of an aspect that ties back into my original media training at the churches was you kind of put content together for like a greater overall purpose. And so now I've kind of tied that greater overall purpose into community service and really service above self. And where did I learn that from? No. Jesus. Come on now. So I will say that I hope, I didn't include this, I was a member of the Centennial Rotary Club years ago, and unfortunately their 7 a.m. time just doesn't work well for a parent with kids. But I do kind of believe what I'm building should pass the 4-way test. That all fits. So so kind of going from a more idealistic thing into news, I don't know. I just felt that I could build something better. So we all know kind of the current state of local newspapers and local news. This was actually a report from Northwestern Medill that does this annual state of local news. And if you just look at the charts, you don't even need to see any of the small numbers or anything, but you can tell there's basically been a 40% decline in local news papers as actual papers over the last 20 years. Now, there's many reasons for this, from, the internet, the ability for self-publishing platforms, social media. Like the decline is real. But I see it as an opportunity to build something new. So, if we're going to build something new, we're going to rebuild local news from the ground up, digital first. We got to shoot the gaps. So, anybody hear that term? What do they think of that phrase, shoot the gaps? Football, yeah. Just like a linebacker that's, trying to get to a quarterback. It's much easier to go where the gaps are than where the linemen are, right? So what were the gaps that I saw? The first was local government reporting. Just going to meetings, straight up reporting what's happening. I like to tell, especially when I introduce myself to either elected officials or people that I'm asking questions, that it's not my words, it's your words. When you go and you read on the website, you will not see opinion mixed in with the story. Now, you might get an opinion from somebody that's in the story, but that was actually there. So local government reporting started there. Community events, and that can be anything. That can be everything from covering, Block 34's grand opening to something small like the Modella Art Gallery getting a new mural on the front building of their building. And somebody's telling me about another new mural coming up. And then this one was actually kind of a surprise to me. I knew that sports was crucial for a local newspaper. I wasn't quite prepared or had it in mind that I would be trying to tackle sports within the first year. But my ninth grade stepdaughter made the volleyball team. And I knew I wanted really good photos of her. And I knew that with the current situation, there was more than likely their games were not going to get covered. Or if they were, it just was not going to be to the level that I think all these kids deserve. So I bumped up my plan, did a little bit of fundraising, asking for some help to get a professional camera. I've never owned, a high-end camera before. And thankfully, some people in this room helped me out. And I'll get to that some more. But the main thing was just seeing sports that just weren't getting covered, from girls' sports to I don't know how many times, uh, you know, parents from other sports like swimming and all these other sports were just begging for attention and not getting it. And then the other gap was local politics. So during my time at the news press, we did a podcast where we interviewed candidates for local office. It went really well, and then that turned into kind of a behind-the-scenes podcast called In the Newsroom, and we ended up winning an award from CNHI, the parent company of the Stillwater News Press, and beat out about 50, 60 other papers on a digital storytelling award. We had done about 70 episodes, and we won the award, and then I pulled the plug. And I'll tell you guys why, maybe off record, but it was something that we were really proud of, and basically just didn't feel supported on. You're kind of like getting a trophy, an award on something, but knowing the owner of the team is not really behind you. Okay, so I thought, and I'm going to blow through this really fast. I thought it'd be kind of fun to go through kind of a timeline of some of the top stories that I've covered this year. So I started this, like if you go to the website and you go to the archive page, which there's something novel, you can go to that page and everything's in chronological order. There's no algorithm. You can go back and you'll see I've got some stories that started actually November 12th was my very first published one. So now I'm officially a year in. But I didn't really publicly announce everything and put it out there till January. So we've got roughly a year's worth of stories. So one of the first ones I got to cover was at the Payne County Expo Center when Payne County landowners were pushing back against the National Electric Corridor. That group was kind of interesting. The county commissioners called it together, made it an official meeting because all three of them were together. And that really kind of brought some people now that are still, from their point of view, wanting to protect their land and their sunsets and stuff from some of these electrical projects. So that was really interesting. That was going there and, talking to people and covering that. And then a couple ones, I kind of got to do some engagement with the city of Stillwater when Myers Park was, the playground was closed down. There were some people getting some answers. And this photo I didn't take. It was a friend and her granddaughter there in front of the playground wanted to go play and wanted to know why it was closed. So we had to get the answers. There was some turf that was tore up and it wasn't safe. And then probably the thing that got the most attention and maybe a little bit of like heat from the mayor was when I posted this video of the roundabout being crashed in. So I knew I love downtown Stillwater, and I knew that there was a camera pointed at that roundabout. And so my first open records request, show me how this thing got, demolished. And there it is, it looks like a 20-year-old Tahoe going well faster than the speed limit, just launches off of that thing. And I think the mayor was kind of worried that I was just going to do all this, kind of attention clickbait journalism. But you'll see later on, I've followed up on that story. Some other things we had, Discount Tire. It was so interesting to see which stories actually were interesting to people. And this was one that just kind of popped off. And how I measure that, so I get basic stats of who opens the emails and who visits and stuff like that. But I don't do any like ads that track you around the internet or any things like that. But social media also gives me kind of some measure, and this was pretty talked about. It looks like they built a fence on that, but still no progress towards a new tire store. And this was the big one. So I'm a few months in, and I get my first chance at being embargoed by Google and the city of Stillwater. I had a 24-hour notice that officially it was going to be Google behind the data centers, and I have timestamp proof. The first publication to put that story out there officially. Now, if you look, I don't know if you guys can kind of see these numbers, but that was March 12th. 3 days later, the wildfires come through. It's really crazy looking back at this and knowing that only it was that short a time when we're like, okay, it's Google, and you know, we're going to get all this investment and all this stuff into just homes being destroyed. And I don't know if you can tell from that photo there, but Terry Essery's eyes are about as bloodshot and tired as possible. Whoops, clicked the wrong way. And so, yeah, going there and now, you know, trying to help people understand what's going on, trying to help, you know, get the story out there. And then, you know, less than a month later, Boys from Oklahoma shows up. This was kind of fun because I did another story right beforehand where Cody Canada and the band came up to get recognized in front of the city council. I'm sitting there in my spot, ready to go. I have no idea that they're coming. They don't put them on the agenda, you know, when they bring in these types of things. And so I'm sitting there, and then suddenly, like, they walk in, and I'm not like a Red Dirt super fan, but my wife is. And so I took a photo and texted her. I was like, you would not believe who is right in front of me. And I texted her a photo of Cody Canada, and she was so mad at me. She was like, why didn't you tell me? I was like, I didn't know. I was like, you gonna start coming to city council meetings with me now? So then I made up for it because then the Humane Society reached out and says, hey, they're going to come visit the shelter to help us fundraise. And I was like, can I invite my wife? And they were like, of course. So she got to take photos with them and get kind of a really cool experience. And then shortly after that, and this is probably the story that really resonated the most, not just among Stillwater, but outside of Stillwater, was the announcement that the high school was going to be demolished. And that how many people in here graduated from that high school, Stillwater High School? Yeah. And then kind of another farewell, similar one, Murphy's Department Store closing after 99 years. Like, just get one more to get to 100. And then kind of, you know, this is the thing, the reality of local news is that it's up and down. The Mission of Hope invites me in to kind of give some reality about what the federal grant losses were going to do to the homeless shelter. And that was a big one. And then not, 7 days later, I'm talking about Our Daily Bread and their expansion. Not knowing that SNAP benefits were going to be cut months down the road and that this expansion is definitely needed. Same thing, our hospital leaders spoke up. This was one where I wasn't there, but it was recorded online, and I was like, oh, this is pretty important. And that story right there, as far as reach, is one of the top stories. There's another thing that makes all these minuscule as far as reach, but we'll get to that one. And then the Noon Lions Club invited me to join their 60 years service. So if you guys got an anniversary coming up or something, let me know. And then we're back to some fun things. Block 34 and Stillwater honoring the Irby family. And that was another one. Like, that's kind of on the agenda, but you really don't know unless you show up. That's why it's so important for like journalists to physically try to be there. There's a whole even like for this, I have done reports from your guys' meeting because Kevin puts them online, and I can then go and watch them, and I can turn that into a story. But it's better if I'm here, because then I can get more opinions. I can ask questions to try to fill that out. And then the fire station 2 gets dedicated and opening. And then Block 34 opens. And then Visit Stillwater celebrates their 40th. And I'll have to talk more about Visit Stillwater here in a second. School board adopts a cell phone ban. I've got 3 kids, 7th, 9th, and 10th. My 10th grader is Ainsley Peters. She's in the spelling bee. Yep. So another little plug, get your tickets for the spelling bee. And so, okay, then we're getting in. So, getting a sports. So when the school board announced the athletic facilities upgrade, which was kind of also then where we learned about the old city gyms and that stuff were going to be demolished, was kind of good timing because shortly after, Chris Norris reaches out to me about the locker room makeover. And so I'm like, okay, here we go. So thankfully to people, I got a camera, and thankfully to Christy Morrison. So you guys seen me carry around this camera, this big lens. That lens is Christy's. It's not mine. She's letting me borrow it. Because when I was putting together what camera I wanted and stuff, I was like, wait, you got the lens that I want to use. So she's been very gracious with helping, letting me borrow that. While I think I've captured some pretty amazing moments in Stillwater. And while, they're doing the locker room story, like, hey, let's cover a softball game. I knew I was going to do volleyball, and then softball came along, and it was just so fun taking photos and kind of learning how to, capture the athleticism happening. And it was cool that to come to a game, Chris, you might remember, you guys weren't doing so hot that game against Moore. That's right, yeah. And
But it worked out.
yeah. I mean, they came back at the end, and then we got to go to volleyball. So the one thing with doing volleyball photography is it's probably one of the hardest sports to shoot because it's kind of random. And I see she's standing up. She's going to kick me out. So I followed the team. I even got to go down to Norman with them while they upset the number 1 Norman Tigers. And then probably the craziest softball game that I may ever see is when the Lady Pioneers won their regional title. What was the total? It was like 20 to 19. 20 to 19.
We had it in the bag the whole time.
Yeah.
Down 11 to nothing.
Yeah. I show up late and I get there and it's I'm like 11. How? Wait. Oh, I was ready, but man. And then covering the 10th anniversary of the homecoming tragedy, an update that hey, the roundabout's not going anywhere. Just if you hadn't heard, it's going to get upgraded. And then Leadership Stillwater does this great fundraiser. These 2 boys kicked everybody's butt in the cornhole tournament. And I am wrapping up here. So my vision here is just I want to become the rival of what a local newspaper once was, when the paper was the fabric of the community, our shared reality. There's a reason why it's got to come together. And the main thing is local ownership. Local ownership equals local accountability. If a journalist is trying to come in and cover your community, you've got to support them. whether that's through a subscription or just your attention. And then also local advertisers and sponsors have to support them. You'll see a whole lot, especially with the current state of AI. There's an AI website right now that will go through and pull a summary from every city meeting, since they publish it to YouTube, within a day or two. Your names will more than likely, if you're in that meeting, be misspelled, and there will be lots of context missing in that. But local news is going to be a challenge. And so, yeah, that can include sports, lifestyles, obits, eventually opinion. Right now, there's no opinion on there. And
This room has some opinions,
yeah.
if you need some.
But I think the key to the future of local news is local ownership. So I want to give time for any questions, or do we got time?
We've got maybe a quick one, if anybody has a quick one.
Okay.
I put him on the spot. Okay, he'll be here after. Thank you,
Yep.
Chris.
And I'll tease that at the end, but we need to do the four-way test.
Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
put that back on.
Everybody, thank you to Chris. We support education and literacy, so we will be donating a book that you can actually hold in your hand to the Stillwater Public Library in your honor.
I will
Thank
have
you
to
for
go check
being
that
here
out.
today.
Yeah.
And I will say, you show up, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so everybody.